And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. Today we have an awesome guest here. He is a former vet, a father, as well as a guitarist for a little band you might know called Three Doors Down. Chris Henderson, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, it's super interesting. A lot of things always happen. You know, you try to reach out to these people who are kind of like, let's get certain people on the show. And I posted something on TikTok, and then you responded to it quite a while ago. I posted on Instagram, actually, and you responded to it. And I was kind of like, hey, this is really cool. And then you start kind of diving into things, and it's really exciting to just kind of reach out and see if we can get certain people on. But I think that you have a great story, and I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. You know, most people see you as this, you know, this successful guitarist of a band, but they don't know, you know, a lot about your story. Can you tell us a little bit kind of about like where you grew up and your childhood and you know, how you got into guitar?
Yeah. So my childhood, I'll start right from the beginning, but I started, let's see, pretty rough childhood, to be honest with you. It wasn't really the greatest childhood that people could probably imagine, but you know, so my parents divorced. I was really young. My dad left when I was 3, something like that. I didn't really see the guy again until, I don't know, maybe 12, 13. So he was out of the picture. My mom was a career student. So she's got a degree in law, a degree in business, a degree in music, you know, all these different degrees. So all this, she just went to school the whole time I was growing up. And so I had a brother, his name was Edward, and he, for lack of a better term, has like a photographic memory. He can remember all these things. He reads all these different things, and he got into music, started learning to read music, and just basically, you know, from the fact that our parents were doing what they were doing, I guess he went straight into music as hard as he could. I went straight into everything but that as far as playing. And so I grew up, you know, on the wrong side of the tracks, if that makes sense. Started getting into a lot of trouble. Wasn't really doing. I was playing guitar a little bit. I started playing guitar around 6, but I really didn't. You know, I'd play for a day or two and put it in the closet, if that makes sense, and just go about my life. I didn't really start playing until around 13 when I got kicked out of my mom kicked me out of her house and sent me to live with my dad, who like I said before, I didn't know the guy that well, but my dad lived in Montana, and it was the middle of winter.
Oh, dang.
So it was me and a guitar. It was a Flying V from Sears and Roebuck's, I think, was where my mom got it from, and a boombox, like a cassette player that I could plug my guitar into. It sounded like shit. I mean, it was horrible. I couldn't mimic any of the sounds.
Right?
No, it did not, and
Didn't at
I
all.
couldn't mimic any of the sounds that I was trying to mimic. I couldn't figure out the distortion. I couldn't figure out anything on the guitar, and I had a book. It was a Mel Bay Guitar Method 1. And I remember when I was 6, I took a lesson, and the guitar teacher told me how to hear. You know, she didn't teach me how to hear it. I could just hear it. But in between the notes, when they're not in tune, there's these beats that they wah, wah, wah. They kind of wobble, wobble, wobble. And as you get them in tune, they slow down, and then they stop, right?
Yeah.
And that's when the strings are in tune. So she showed me how to tune the guitar just to ear, and then how to read the notes on the first string, and how to count, you know, 4/4, 2/4, 3/4, all the different time signatures, just in that one lesson. And it was just basically in the book I could just read. So I was like, well, I don't need to go back to her. So I started teaching myself to read music in Montana. I had nothing but time on my hands because I didn't have any friends. My dad and it was very remote where we lived. We lived in a cabin on the side of a mountain, and it was just me and lots of time, man. And I started banging out, you know, like these weird little tunes that were in this book, because all I had, and I had 2 records. I had Queensryche, Warning, and Iron Maiden, Power Slave. Only 2 tapes I had. When I say tapes, it was cassettes back then.
Yep.
And so I just sat and tried to learn every little piece of those for about a year. And I just, you know, literally woodshedded, because I lived in a fucking woodshed.
Was it kind of like buried in the snow too? Was there a lot of snow up there? Because I know that I'm in Idaho, so Montana's, a little bit east, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of snow over there.
I never saw the ground, man, really. I mean, until spring and summer, but it wasn't that long, and it started snowing again up there, man. I lived in a place called Swan Lake. It's between Big Fork and Kalispell.
Uh-huh.
So it's like way up there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm from, man. I mean, you hear my voice. I'm not from Montana.
Right.
So it was culture shock for me.
Yeah. Where were you? You were in, is it Mississippi or Tennessee? Where were you at when you were younger before you moved in with your dad?
Well, so I was actually born in Maryland,
Maryland. Okay.
and I lived in Maryland until I was about 13. Well, my mom moved to Florida to go to law school, or to what, I forget what school she was going to down there. She moved to Florida to go to some school, and so I went with her. As soon as I got to Florida, man, I was right in trouble with the cops again. I'd already had a couple felonies, as a juvenile. Like I said, the stuff I went through as a kid, which I don't go into many details with that. A lot of that's really that'd be for a different show.
Sure.
But the stuff that I went through, man, like it just like, what did you think was going to happen? I turned into a pretty rough child. A lot of fighting, and really didn't do very well in school until high school, because I started turning things around. Around Montana, because it was a lot of time just like inside here.
Right.
I didn't have, like I said, didn't have any friends at home at all. None. My dog,
Yeah.
I don't even think my dog liked me that much. So just spent a lot of time by myself, and I started to figure things out, I think, without being taught, because my parents, my dad's passed away. I don't want to say many bad things about him, but he didn't teach me many things about what you should be teaching kids. You know what I mean? He kind of like left me to my own devices.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you learned how to play guitar kind of after that, and then you did you go to high school in Montana? Is that kind of where you ended up going to high school, or?
No. So I went back to Mississippi, and went to a junior high called Ed Mayo, and Ed Mayo was about I'd say 94% black, about 6% white. It's in a town called Moss Point, and it's a predominantly black town. And I lived on the outskirts of that town, and I went to that school, and played football there.
Okay.
Made a lot of great friends, man, and learned a lot of different things, and picked up some different flavors of music. Because at that time, see, I already did that year in Montana where I played guitar, so I was kind of okay at it at this point. People knew me as a guitar player in the ninth. It was in the ninth grade, and they knew like that's the guy that plays guitar. So I had gotten that good, at least, where people knew. And I met a couple guys there a couple blues guys. One blues guy in particular became real good friends with me, and we just started riffing back and forth and hanging out pretty much constantly all day long. There's another kid there that played drums. His name's Greg, and he was a really good drummer for a ninth grader. And we started kind of like, trying to play songs and trying to put songs together and play things, and a lot of Skinner and a lot of stuff like that. And it was Mississippi. I lived in a remote place again, and had a lot of time. So I sat and I played guitar, man. And I played guitar for, from the ninth grade till the time I joined the Navy as 18. I played guitar every single day.
How much did you play when you were younger? Was it like, you'd get home from school and you'd be playing, or did you take your guitar with you to school and stuff, or what was that like?
Well, man, I got to be honest with you. So there's a part of this story that you're not going to believe that is going to, and you're not going to believe how I did it, because I don't know how I really did it, but I just did. So my dad was married to a, for lack of a better term, a religious tyrant. She was Jehovah's Witness, and I mean, not a one that you hear about, like knocking on your door, not one of those. She was like a fundamentalist. And so there was no music, there was no dancing, there was no TV, there was no books, there were no, any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like rock and roll, fuck you, man. You couldn't, no way. It's not going to happen. Not in my house. And I grew up in that house. And so I had to take my music elsewhere.
Okay.
So I learned to play guitar at friends' houses, and I literally dropped my guitar off at a buddy's, and I was like, "Hey man, can I leave this here? Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose this at some point." I was afraid that she's going to take my guitar from me.
Uh-huh.
So I left it at a friend's house, and so every single day I'd get up in the morning, and I had my chores to do. If I wanted to get to my guitar, I had to do these lists that she'd make, these lists of chores for me to do around the house, and at first I resented it, but because I had to do all this stuff to get to my guitar, and I hated to have to do that. But it installed a work ethic in me that I think helped me become a better player, because I worked really hard, because she was really strict and about not only about like the rules of my life, but like how I did those chores. Like she would come back and check behind me every single thing she asked me to do or told me to do. And if it wasn't done right, man, the next day was a rough day. And so I did shit right, and that's how I got out of there. And I'd do my chores, boom, hit the road. And
So
I
do you
played.
think that like that kind of put, I played sports in high school, and that was kind of what made me have that work ethic, like the timing
Mm-hmm.
and, being on time, doing the things that you're supposed to do, following direction, yes, sir, yes, ma'am type of thing. Do you think that that kind of helped you, along the way, kind of get that structure that you were missing when you were younger?
I think it did, man. But it was like I said, it was never like taught to me. That no one ever said, "Hey, this is how you do life. This is how this is how you get out of bed in the morning." No one ever said anything to me about any of that. They just basically, you know, shoved these pieces of paper in my face and walked away and expected me to do everything and get it all done. And I kind of learned how to put that together. And so I lived like 9.5 miles away from my high school, where I went to high school, and I played high school football. And man, I played it, and I dedicated my life to it, to the weight room, everything, and played at a really again. The high school I went to was about, it wasn't as the white and the black kids. There was more white kids at the high school, but the football team was a lot of black kids and just a few white kids. And I loved it, and I rode my bike to school for 2-day practices, so
Dang.
9 miles
Yeah.
twice a day. So that's 18 miles. Eat a little bit, get back on your bike, boom, another 9 miles, and then another 9 miles. And I did that every year. And my coaches, man, like, I wasn't the greatest football player of all time, but my coaches noticed that I did that. And I never went in and told them and said, "Hey, coach, I ride my bike to school every day and come to 2 days, riding all these miles." I never mentioned it to them. I just did it, and never missed a practice ever. Always at practice, and it wasn't because I loved football practice, because man, it's Mississippi, it's hot, and it was tough, and it was hard, man. But I just didn't want to be at my house.
It was an
I just didn't want
escape.
to be home. Yeah, and so football season, baseball season, and in between sports, I played guitar. But everything I did away from my home. I just got out of there as quick as I could, and every single day. And I did that my whole childhood, and until the day I left. And I spent as little time at home as I possibly could, and played guitar and played sports. And I knew that football wasn't going to work out for me, the next level, because I'm only 5'10", and I was a middle linebacker for a couple years. That didn't, I wasn't as good at middle linebacker as I was at offensive line. So my coaches were like, "We want to move you from defense to offense. You got to learn all these plays now and all that good stuff." And so I started studying football, and I did it, man. And I went from middle linebacker, a third string middle linebacker, to first string center, and started for 2 years, and really appreciated like that move. I didn't like it at first. I was kind of sick to my stomach, because I was a defensive player, and there's a lot of glory in defense, and not much on the offensive line. But I did it, man, and I'm glad I did.
It's
I'm
funny.
glad
I
I
was
did.
an offensive tackle, and I played center a little bit in middle school, but it was that's a tough position. That's a tough
It's
one to
tough,
learn
man.
anyway.
Yeah.
But I could play both ways, right? So I played offensive tackle, and then I played defensive tackle. But I don't know why. I just had this love for offense, and it's kind of weird, because it's an unforgiving And it's people don't put a lot of stress on, hey, that's one of the best positions in the whole team. You just don't hear about it. They just don't give you any glory.
No,
So
no. And one of the things that I think that they fail to mention about the offensive line especially, is the amount of technique it takes for you to just be not to just be on the field, but in order to maneuver and to block someone, to stay on your feet blocking someone who's really strong and doesn't want to be blocked.
right.
You have to you know what I mean? Like everything has to be working. Like you can't be slew-footed. You have to be everything's got to be straight. It takes a lot of mechanical practice and a lot of long hours of doing really weird things to be able to play those positions. And and like I said, I think it really helped me later in life being able to do that.
Well, they always call you a big dumb lineman anyway. It's like that's all you do. But guess what? Without us, there's no you.
Man, I know, and I'm sitting here remembering 75 different blocking schemes, and being the center, I couldn't it wasn't just me. I had to know everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I had to know where you were going to be, and I had to know,
Yeah,
it's
a tough one. That's the hardest part about that. It's like not only that, you got to snap the ball too and hope that you get that clean and then do your
Yeah,
job.
right. I tell you what I did. I just tried to break that dude's hands.
Yeah,
That's what I tried to do.
exactly.
Try to give it to him as hard as I could.
So after high school, you headed off to the Navy.
I did,
What,
yes.
What gave you the idea to do that? I mean, I know, and I'm grateful for all of our veterans. I was a chicken shit. I didn't want to go anywhere. After I graduated high school, the war in Iraq broke out. It was, I was like doing everything I could to not go there. But there's people like you that I really appreciate the fact that you go out and you willing to do that. What kind of drove you that way?
Well, a lot of it was my parents, I think. My dad was in the Air Force. My grandfather was and my grandfather was a war hero. You know what I mean? Like he was decorated the Navy, the Navy Flying Cross. He was all this stuff. He was the CO of the test pilot school. He was an enlisted man that went officer and became a captain, like one of the only ones that did. And flew PBYs and was in Pearl Harbor, like all these different things this guy did. And so I always had my grandfather kind of in my head throughout. He died when I was really young, so I didn't really know him that well. But just through family and people talking, and my grandfather basically became my hero in childhood, just because he was an implied hero, because I never really knew him that well. I made something of that in my head, and it gave me something to look up to, and I wanted to be like that. I wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to. So that was always an option for me. But I also wanted to go to college. But like I said, I didn't have anyone teaching me that there's a path to college that you have to take. There's certain things you have to do, and certain tests you have to take, and certain grades have to be met, and it takes what do they call them, people in the school system that I never really got to talk to, the counselors, the career counselors.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, where the hell was I didn't have any of that in high school. I was just basically flying by my own, on my own. And so when I graduated, I hadn't done any of those things or prerequisites to go to school. So that wasn't going to be an option. And I don't think that, and I mean, I'd have figured it out, but it just wasn't an option. So
it's definitely interesting how things are today in school. Cause I was before what I do now, like I sell window coverings. I'm a window covering salesman by day. Right. But I was a PE teacher for 4 years, and I was in the high school education system, and they take days to administer the SAT. They take days to administer, what's the exam they take for the military? I can't even remember. I've lost on
ASVAB.
The ASVAB. They
ASVAB.
take a day to.
Yeah, I took that one.
Yeah. So they take days to administer that stuff. And, when I was in high school, that didn't happen. It was like you had to, I lived in Ontario, Oregon, which is 60 miles away from where I live in Boise right now. And I had to drive to Boise to go take the SAT and the ACT. And it's like, they didn't do that there. It's way different now than it was then. So.
Yeah, they didn't do it when I was growing up either. I didn't even know what the SAT was. And so I applied to the University of Tampa. And I was going to try to play football there. And there was a first-year football team. And, I mean, like I said, I was a good player, but I wasn't really big. So it wasn't like I was going to go to a D1 school. But I was looking for a place to play football, to go to the next level. And that was an option for me, to play football there. But then there was this test that I hadn't taken, and I was like, wait a minute. So I got to take a test to come play football. But but apparently you did. So that didn't happen. So I'll come back to the Jehovah's Witness thing a little bit. So, Jehovah's Witnesses, no birthdays, no none of that stuff. So I never really got anything for my birthday growing up, except right around April and May is when you graduate in Mississippi. About May 26th, May 27th is the last day of school every year. And my birthday is April 30th. So I say this is my birthday present, but my dad gave me an envelope that had a $20 bill in it. And every recruiter card, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, you know what I mean? And he was basically saying, hey, you did it. You graduated high school. It's time for you to go somewhere. Here's a bus fare or whatever it is you do with this 20, and here's where you need to go. And so I went and I saw the Army first. And the Army, I took the ASVAB, scored, whatever everybody scores on that thing. I scored well. The Army wanted me to become, I forget what the MOS was going to be, but it was going to be a field. It wasn't going to be a specialized job. And I wanted I wanted to be trained. I wanted to be trained. I wanted to come out of the military with something because I felt like I was bringing something to them, which is weird. A lot of kids just sign on the dotted line and go do whatever, but I wanted specific. But what I mentioned earlier is I had some felonies as a kid, some burglaries and some different things that, that kids do. Kids like me did. But I had turned this whole thing around. Like I went from not being able to go to school to being pretty much a straight A student in high school. So I went to school every day, never missed a day, never missed practice because, like I said, I didn't want to go home.
Didn't want to be home.
Didn't want to be home. So I went to school and I did. And while I was there, I was like, shit, I might as well do this. And so I applied myself, man. And I did really well. Graduated with honors. So I went to the Army and the recruiter was like, well, since you've got these felonies, there's about 5 things you can do. And they all pretty much, have to do with being shot at. And I was like, man, like I can do that. I guess I could go learn to be infantry or whatever it is you want me to do. But let me just ask around. So I went to talk to the Air Force. Air Force said no, that because of my felonies. The Coast Guard also said no. I was thinking about my grandfather's in the Navy, and I was like, let me go talk to the Navy recruiter. And I went to the Navy guy's office, and dude, man, he was such a cool guy, and he was a CB. And he basically said, hey, man, let's pick some jobs. These are the things that you qualify for, and we will put it in writing that you will do this job, and you will go here, and you will do this. And so I joined the Navy, and I signed up to be a support equipment technician, which is if you ever, you go to the airport and you sit on the plane, all the little trucks and little cars and things that ride around the airplanes. Yep. That's support equipment. Those are support equipment. And so there's air conditioning, there's hydraulic systems, there's all these things because they hook these things to the airplanes and do all the testing of all the systems while the plane's on the ground. Well, I worked on all of those things. Yeah. And the school was, it was 31 weeks, I think. Or maybe I'm lying. It was long. It was a long school, but I went to gasoline, diesel, engine school, transmission, so car transmissions, electrical, basic electronics, and circuits. So I was able to what they called component repair, like taking resistors and transistors and other solder boards. Right. So troubleshooting solder boards and what else was it? It was cryogenics. So, man, I learned so much stuff, and I went and I did that job in the Navy, and it was so many things to learn that I never stopped learning. I was just always learning, and in books. And I spent 4 years active duty. And during that 4 years, not only did I learn how to fight in bars and stuff like that, but I also took those 4 years to learn different things. So I taught myself 3-phase electricity, motor rewinding, stuff like that, generator repair, basic residential and commercial electricity. I read a lot of books, and I started taking these tests that the Navy would administer these tests to you for free. And if you passed them, you got that qualification. So I started qualifying to do different things.
Where's your guitar through this whole thing? Where's it at?
Every day. I'd get up in the morning.
Still playing.
Yeah, every day. And the thing about me was I didn't know what to practice. So I never had someone going, hey, this scale, this is that, this is the key of this. It was just me and Metallica and me and Megadeth and me and just my friends and just playing, putting a tape in and trying to learn it. Yeah. That's how I learned. And I did it every single day, and the whole time in the Navy, and and I was in 90. I went in 89, got out in 93, off active duty. Didn't really get out until way later, but that the first Gulf War broke out then, and so a lot of the training a lot of the things I was doing when that happened stopped, and the Navy was like, "Hey, we need you to do this now," So I went and I did some. I went to basically the Military Police Academy, but it wasn't one that I went to. They set it up on the base that I was on, and they had some Marines come in, and these Marines taught us, some weapons and some combat things and some different things, law enforcement type stuff, and some small team tactics stuff, which I was like, wow, this is really cool. I like this. I like this kind of like this specialized thing that I'm getting, and I learned how to tear down and clean and put back together 45s and what they had back then, the M16s. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I started learning kind of weapons and things like that, and how to operate and how to shoot, but not only how to shoot properly, and how to, the different techniques it takes to become a shooter, and all the things. Like I was talking about football, there are all these different things that you had to body positioning and feet, and I respond to that. I love that kind of stuff. So that I was into that, and I wanted to go and do that now somehow. Yeah. So my focus started shifting a bit from becoming the best all around, most knowledgeable kind of like handicrafts guy that I could possibly be, to now being something, some combat guy that I wanted to be, but really just wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
So, but they don't really hire lots of cops with felony convictions. So I didn't really know how it was going to work, but the Navy didn't mind. And so I became a police officer, basically, which was really fun. I love that work. It was really cool. I enjoyed it.
So how long did that go, and when did you get out of the Navy? What year were you out of the Navy?
Got out off active duty in 93, and I did 2 years in the stupid Army. God, it was horrible. It wasn't really the Army. It was the National Guard, or what do you call it? Yeah, the Mississippi National Guard. Okay. And I was in an engineering battalion. I went to Navy dive school at the end of my first 4 years of school. I met this guy's a SEAL, and he was like, "Hey man, we're gonna be working out on the beach and doing all this SEAL stuff if you want to join." And like I said, I told you I love that shit. So I started working out with this guy, and applied to EOD assistant, which is I don't know, the EOD or bomb technicians, but I didn't have enough. You have to be E5 or above. I was only E4, so I had to apply for the underling. But I still would go to dive school and become a diver, and that's what I wanted to kind of do. And then I applied for EOD assistant and second class diver, and the packages and the way that you do that takes a really long time. It's like a 9 or 10 month process. You have to take these physical tests and lots of written tests and stuff, and had to go see these diver detailers and had to go meet all these different people, and it took a really long time, and but I got it, and I got accepted to second class dive school. So right at the end of my first 4 years of active duty, I went to this school, and when I got there, I just kind of was like, do I want to do just this for the rest of my life? Like, do I want to be a diver for the rest of my life? Because that was about what was about to happen.
Right.
If I graduated that school, the Navy was going to require another 4 years of active duty, and I was going to be whatever they wanted me to be. And
right.
Thought about it. I was like, you know what? There might be other opportunities out there for me. And I'm playing guitar. I'm still playing every day. So I went to there's a detailer at that dive school, and I went to him, and I told him the truth. I was like, man, I'm thinking that maybe this isn't what I want to do. And he's like, hey, no problem. He's like, why don't you take a weekend? I'll give you a Friday off. He goes, go home and just kind of think about it. So I went home and applied for a job in a shipyard as a helper, Ingalls Shipbuilding. And I went on an interview that Monday. I applied for the job on Friday, went for my interview on Monday, and I sat down in front of that guy, and he started asking me questions, and I just started, telling him about all the stuff I learned in the books. And he was like, man, I'm not going to hire you as a helper. He's like, I'll hire you as a first-class electrician. So I was basically the youngest first-class electrician that he had ever hired. I was like barely 21, 22.
Yeah.
And this is a journeyman position, like people with 12 years experience. And I had none of that. I didn't know what the fuck this guy was talking about. he was going to hire me as a first class. And I went home and told my dad. My dad was like, "Are you crazy?" I said, "You can't do that job." He's like, "You're gonna tear something up out there." So, but I did it, man. I showed up on the first day as a first class electrician, not knowing anything about what was going on out there and like shipbuilding and how things really worked. And the ship electricity is different, right? Because they split everything in half. So it's 55 here, 55 here, and you're standing on the ground. So the ground is the ship. So anytime you touch something, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so you got to be doubly careful, because 55 volts will kill you too.
Yeah.
But I went in there blind, man. I didn't know anything about it, and like my supervisor, he realized after about a week that I wasn't supposed to be there, and he pulled me off to the side, and he said, "Hey, man," he's like, "I don't know how you got this job." He's like, "But you did." He's like, "But I'm going to give you about another, I'll give you 25, 30 days to learn, and then I'm going to have to let you go." And so I was like, "Fuck, man. I got to figure this out." So I started like staying after and going in a little bit early and talking to people and asking lots of questions. And I learned how to do that job, man. And taught myself marine electricity on my feet with a hammer and at that time, in the shipyard, there was an opportunity to become a combination so I could learn how to weld. So I learned how to weld. And basically, I'd go into these compartments on these ships and put all the lights up and then wire them, and then put all the receptacles up and wire them, and all the switches up and wire them. So it's a pretty cool job. I liked it.
That is so awesome. Like, I just, you think about the lost art of being a jack of all trades. Like my dad could do pretty much anything, and it's amazing. And I try to learn whatever I can from him. But he, motors and cars, building things. We put countertops in his house. I mean, there's all these things that are skills that we don't teach anymore because they don't even have those classes in school. It's stupid,
Right? Yeah, I know, it's crazy. They took Votech out, and I didn't even do Votech. I did Votech in the Navy basically, which was. But man, I tell you, that job in that shipyard. I hired in. I can't remember the exact date, but within a year and a half, I was what they call a lead man. So I was right under my supervisor in my crew, and my supervisor was about ready to retire. So he just stopped showing up to work pretty much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the next thing I know, I'm this crew supervisor, but no one in the shipbuilding, like the administration side, knew it. They knew I was a lead man. They didn't know that they didn't know that my supervisor wasn't showing up. He was on salary, so he was just like, I guess whatever they did, and then go home,
Yeah.
and leave it to me. So yeah, it was a pretty fun job, and I went from there. All right, so while I was there, they started talking about layoffs. They're laying off a bunch of people, so I applied for the fire department, the Moss Point Fire Department with the town I lived in, and I got the job. Actually, got the job. Became a firefighter. Was there about 6 months. Wasn't there very long, and that's the only job I ever was asked to, like. They didn't like come in and go, "Hey, you're fired," but the guy like let me go. He thought that, and he's probably right. I don't even know. He thought that I was such a hard sleeper that I wouldn't hear the fire phone go off. And the fire phone was just really low. Yeah. And I was a kid, you know what I mean? I was 22 years old. So I was doing all the things kids do. I was staying out too late. I was drinking way too much. And I was playing in a rock band. At this point, I started playing in a band called The Union with Todd, our Three Doors bass player.
Okay.
And a couple friends from high school. And we were doing bar gigs and staying out, we were partying, man, and doing it right.
Yeah.
But I was still trying to do a career change into this, into this field that was totally new to me. Medicine, the medical part of it, the first responder, the EMT, doing IVs and all these different things that I was going to be learning to do would have been a completely different trade that I'd ever done in my entire life. I'd never given a shot. I'd never done any of these things, and I was about to learn. And that scared the shit out of me, but I was going to do it. You know what I mean? I was just going to do it. And yeah, but so about 6 months into that, the chief came and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna have to let you go." And he's like, "I'm really sorry. I don't want to, but I have to." And I was like, "All right, man, whatever. I get it. You guys think I'm a hard sleeper." I mean, it was rough because, like, I had in the shipyard, I made, like, back then it was like $15 an hour, I think, back then, which was a lot of damn money.
A lot of money. Yep.
Yeah, and I went from 15 to 8 to $8 an hour to take the firefighting job. So I cut my pay in half. And I mean, I was struggling financially. And this guy was getting ready to let me go. So yeah. So anyways, but that led me to my next job, which led me to to Three Doors. But so Todd and I played in this band called The Union, and the singer of that band, his name is Sean, super nice guy, decided one day that he was the songwriter, he was the guy, he was gonna, no one else was ever as dedicated as he was, so he was gonna quit and go to Nashville to become a songwriter. So that band broke up, and we had some good times and played some big ass shows as a local band, and had written some songs that, to be fair, that I didn't write them, but I was just kind of like in the band. The songs were already written when I got there, but they were good songs, man. And I think that band had a shot to actually do something. It felt like it did, and but it broke up, and that led. So Todd went back home. He lived in Escataba. I lived in Moss Point, but I moved to Escataba. So Todd went back to Escataba, and that's when Three Doors started. That was around probably 94, 95. Like Three Doors started. It was Matt Roberts, Brad Arnold, and then Todd Harrell. And they had another cat. Can't remember his name. He didn't last long. He's a little dickhead. Ended up like trying to sue us years later for songs that he had fucking nothing to do. He tried to sue us for a Local H song. Remember that Local H, that band?
Local, yeah.
They're from Chicago. It was in the early 90s, but they had a really big song, and this kid was suing us for that other band song because it was a song that Three Doors covered in there. And he was like, oh, yeah, I wrote that song. What an idiot. Anyways.
Yeah.
But that's how that happened. And so I joined a band called Burning Bridges, and Burning Bridges, from the Union to Burning Bridges, was they were different. It was kind of progressive musicians type stuff. Like, not anything anyone wanted to hear, really, but it was really fun to play. And they had the reputation around town as being the old musician guys. And I went right there and joined that band. Had a lot of fun, man. And I learned how to I learned how to play with technical people, because the first band was just banging around on a guitar. It was just, it was easy, bouncy rock and roll. This band was not like that. It was a lot different. I had to really apply myself to play in this band, and I did. And like I said, I was still playing guitar every day, even then. And I carried my guitar with me in my car. So anywhere I had time to sit down and practice, I would. I'd sit down and just play for an hour here and there, and other people's houses mostly. That's how I'd always done it. Even as a kid, like I told you before, I always played somewhere else, never at home. And I'm still like that. I still don't play where I live. I go somewhere else to play. Man, it's kind of weird, but I keep doing it.
Old habits die hard, right?
yeah, they do. But so Brad and Matt and Todd, they kicked this other guy out, so they became a three-piece. And the first song I ever heard them play, I was at Todd's trailer in Escataba, man, and I was always there because we were all best friends. And I was at Three Doors' first practice, and I was at their last practice. So so I've been around them a long time, and I've always known them. And I went to school with Brad's sisters, and me and Todd, I lived with Todd. We played junior high football together at Magnolia, and all through high school. So I've known him my whole life. But Life on My Own was written, and I heard that, and I was like, Jesus, man, like that's a good song. Like I could feel it in my bones. And it wasn't long after that Loser was written, and Kryptonite was written. And I mean, like within a couple of weeks, this was boom, 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 boom. These were like three of the biggest songs of an era. Well, Life of My Own wasn't a single, but if it would have been, a good one. But Loser and Kryptonite, like Kryptonite was number one at pop, rock, alternative, and whatever else there was back then, all at the same time. It had never been done in the history of music by anybody. And that song, that song was written by Brad in algebra class. He was 16. Yeah. And
it's just
isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this until a couple days ago, so I feel like kind of a jackass, but he played the drums and sang at the same time. How was that? Was that an interesting thing? Because you don't see that very often. It happens, but it's not a common thing.
You know what though? But it really, he was really good at it, man. And so as a guitar player, I've played with many different drummers. across my life, there's this thing that drummers have or they don't have, right? They either got it or they don't, no matter how good they are. And Brad had it, and it was just kind of like this laid-back pocket that he had, and the one was always where it was supposed to be, but the groove was always where it was really supposed to be. So you didn't have to worry about the drums at all. No matter what he did, it was going to be okay, all right? And other guys that are better drummers that don't have that feel, it's kind of like you're playing with them, and you got to kind of like make it feel good to play. And man, I hated guys like that. And there's a lot of them out there. Brad is definitely one of the few drummers that him and Greg and one other guy. I'm not going to mention his name. Fuck him. But Brad and Greg, man, they have this unbelievable pocket, and just what happens is everything that you're supposed to hear, you hear, and everything that you're not supposed to hear just disappears, and you get what you need, and you're able to do your job to completely, and it's a beautiful thing. Brad had that, and he could sing and do it at the same time, which was crazy. Yeah. And he wasn't a technical drummer. It wasn't like, rudimentary and all these things that these guys do. He wasn't that. He was just good, and just really good, and could sing. And so the first record, The Better Life, the one that came out 2 years ago yesterday, Brad played the drums on that record, and he played them to tape. And so there's no beat detective. There was none of that stuff that we have today. It wasn't electronic. Right. We did that at 2.5-inch tape at Ardent. Everything on that record you heard, we played in a take, or maybe the 20th take, but we did it. You know what I mean? And so that was really cool. I'm glad and that was probably one of the last records, besides the Foo Fighters guys that are doing everything to tape now, that was done to tape, because it was mixed on Pro Tools. So it went from 2.5-inch tape onto a hard drive, and Toby Wright mixed it into Pro Tools and then put it back on tape.
Right.
Which is
That's
a lot
crazy
of fucking.
You brought up the Foo Fighters, because Dave Grohl's one of those guys too that like he plays a lot of the drum beats on his. I'm surprised he didn't sing. Well, I know like the first album they did, it was the same thing. Like he sang, he played the bass, he played the guitar, he played the drums. It's a lost art.
It's one of those guys, man. One of those guys. And, and to do it to tape, because tape, everything's punched. So they have to you'll see the engineers, man, like they'll be sitting on the board like this and listening to the, and Pro Tools, man, everything is just like, all right, man, here, let's just do it again. Boom. All right, but all right, man, I tried. One more time. Boom, boom. Okay, I got it. And then that guy can just take what you just did those 2 times and edit right there, real time on the screen, and put it perfect and be like, boom, all right, that one's done. Now, if that part ends up anywhere else in the song, you can just grab it and put it there. So now you've done the whole song in like 30 seconds, and it takes a bit of the challenge out of it, man. It's like not challenging anymore. You can accidentally do something really, really cool and, have it become a integral part of a song. It didn't exist. And I don't know. I like the tape and but I also like Pro Tools. I mean, I can definitely taught myself how to run Pro Tools.
Have you guys ever thought about going back and doing an album the old way?
No, I don't think so. No, because and I'll tell you why. Because the amount of money it would take to do that, and this is going to sound like I've given up on the music industry. And this is not that at all. It's actually the opposite. But the amount of money it would take to do a record to tape with a producer in a studio, with having to go back and find guys that can still do that. There's not many of them out there that can still even do tape. There's a handful probably. Would take 18, 19, probably 20 weeks in a studio at $2,000-3,000 a day to do it. So you're looking at, $500,000 just in studio time. By the time you got done putting that record out to the fans, it would probably be a $1.2-1.5 million record before it even got promoted, just in man hours and work. There's no way to really recoup that money anymore. There's no way to sell records to make that amount of money.
Right.
So you basically, you either got to do it in a closet for $25 or you don't make new music.
Yeah,
that's the
way that it's gone, because you don't put out physical copies anymore, and now you're getting paid by streams instead of. I remember going down and spending $20 on a CD every week when I got paid, and it was like, you can't do that anymore. Now it's like I pay $8.99 and I can listen to whatever I want. a
Yeah,
month.
and that's the way it is, man. And what a day it was when I surrendered to that. Because I
Yeah.
fought it, man, like everybody else. I was a CD guy and a record guy and a tape guy, and my whole life, like I told you, I only had two cassettes for like 5 years. When just two, and the only two bands that it's really rough having a Queensryche record and an Iron Maiden record and not having anything else for years. I missed a lot of music, missed a lot of good stuff, but I really, the romance of the smell and man, when I finally did get records, opening them up and just living with everything on the inside was a big part of it.
Yeah.
That's kids don't even know what their favorite artists look like
Yeah.
anymore, and so it's really strange. And my daughters are, they've never owned a CD.
I remember opening up the damn book and reading the lyrics. I was always hoping that the lyrics were in there, right? They weren't always in there, but when they were,
They weren't always in there. I know.
yeah, when they were, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great. I can learn these words.
Yeah, you could, and it was awesome. And even though what I always notice is, and I got to do this real time, even though the words are in there, you'd listen to them, you'd listen, and you'd find the little mistakes. There's always little like mistakes that the guy didn't sing in. So you know that the singer of the band wasn't translating the lyrics; it was someone else.
Right.
So when we did our record, Brad was like, "No, I'm going to translate. I'm going to write down." So you got it, you know what I mean? But he had to fight because they were like, "No, we'll have somebody else do it," and he was like, "No, man, I'll do it." So he wrote them out, and so I also on the Better Life on the tab books with the numbers books, I went over them and made sure that the notes were right and all the music was right instead of just letting the computer spit it.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of your time, and I didn't talk to you about that before. Are you good? Are you still good for?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I'm good.
All right, because
You
I
can do
have some
whatever.
more questions. I mean, there's some, when you said that you were going to do this, I started diving into you a little bit more, and I noticed some really cool stuff that I thought, you have this routine where you go and do CrossFit pretty much every day. Are you still doing that? Is that still something that you do? Can you tell us
every day.
why you kind of got into that? Because I think that it's a really neat story.
Well, CrossFit, I was looking for something. I'd go to the gym and, I could, all right, well, I'll back up and I'll start. So I ballooned up to, let me back up some more. When the band got signed and, drugs and alcohol became prevalent, they were already kind of prevalent for me. I was kind of like, I was dabbling a bit, mostly just drinking, became a way of life. And
Right.
I was 24/7, 365, drinking or drugging. I was never. It became that before. Like when I worked real jobs, I couldn't show up at an industrial plant, with fire around me all the time and people banging on shit and saws and heavy equipment. I couldn't go there drunk. I couldn't go there using anything. I had to be sober because if not, you would die. But now I'm in a rock band and it's kind of like it's okay now. It's okay to get up hungover and start drinking again just to avoid the feeling of being sick. And then it's okay to use this to avoid coming down. And that becomes, like I said, 24/7. And I did that for about, 7 years straight. And then, through all the trials and tribulations of a rock band and all the kind of the ego and the things that the money and all the things that the jealousy and all the things that happen in that world. There's a lot of things that happen to an individual that aren't really that comfortable. And you start using over those feelings, you know what I mean? The feelings of, because you don't want to feel bad. You don't want to feel jealousy. You don't want to feel anger. You don't want to feel all these things. And when you're living in close quarters with people and there's money and there's all these different things that egos pop and friction but in order to stay in order for the band to stay on the road, you have to fix that shit or you have to figure out a way to get through it.
Right.
I got just got hammered, and that's what I did, and it came to a head. I forget, like, I don't know, 08 maybe, something like that. It came to a head, and I went and I got clean. And when I did, man, I gained probably 150 pounds, something like that. Went from, well, more than that. Not more than that. I went from like probably 185, 190 to 287 almost 300 pounds. Probably got to 300 before I started losing weight. And so I changed my diet and discovered, trying to work out. I was trying to run. I was trying to go to the gym, and some weight came off, but it really didn't. I couldn't really go work out. I'd go to the gym for like a week or two, and then I wouldn't go back. And I was spending all this money at Gold's. I was spending all this money, all these gym memberships and fucking trainers and just different things. And I'd get all excited about something, but I couldn't really do it. And it kind of sucked, man. But I had some work done at my house, and there's a guy showed up every day. He was jacked, man. He's ripped veins and everything, and he was wearing every day. He had a different CrossFit shirt on, and it would say CrossFit whatever, CrossFit Rhode Island, CrossFit this, CrossFit that. And I asked him, man, I didn't know anything about it. I was like, man, what's CrossFit? And he's like, I could try to explain it to you. He's like, but what are you doing tomorrow morning? He's like, why don't you just go with me? I'll take you to my CrossFit gym. And he did, man. And I've been every single week since that day. That dude completely changed my life. What I like about CrossFit, not only is it always hard, because it is, never gets easy, but there's always a coach, and there's always a class of people that are doing the same thing. And it becomes about this community of people. It's really crazy. And I bought into that whole thing. I went and got certified as a level 1 in what do they call them? Level 1 certification. It's tricky the way that you got to word it. But I became certified to coach CrossFit. I do very little of that, but I can, I guess. But I went all in, man. Both feet. I lost 130 pounds, 32 pounds to get exact. I went from 287 to 163. So do that math. You know what I mean? That's 100.
If you go back and you look at like when you kind of ballooned up or whatever, you don't look like the same person. I mean, it's like, holy smokes, where'd this guy come from? It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, man. And my kids were, and my little girl, kids, they don't have a filter. So I think parents, she looked at a picture of me. It's a picture of me and Brad and Greg, the soccer goalie for the USA women's team, Hope Solo, I think was her name. Uh-huh. And we did one of those shows out in George Lopez show. She was there, and we took a picture. I had this jacket on, and my belly would come out of the jacket. And my little girl was like, "Dad, look how fat you are." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like that's when it sunk in that I was like, I was probably gonna die from that. Like I was gonna die from being overweight. Is what basically it amounted to. So that's when I started trying to figure it out, man. And I did. I feel like
I enjoyed watching that because it seemed like you have this routine, and listen to that other interview I listened to the other day. You were talking about like routines and how you before you play, and it's just like, to me, that's the way I am. It's like routine is something that keeps me doing what I need to do and keeps me in shape and keeps me in, that structure is something that I've always loved, and that's what I like about it.
And I think for me, that structure and the routine is a big part of it, but also there's this wealth of knowledge that exists that you got to go get. And once I figured out that being in shape wasn't about getting lucky or about good genes as for a guy like me, as much as it was going to be about for like figuring out the routine, figuring out what my body was going to respond to and how to make my body do different things. And like, there's all this information that I didn't have that I had to go find. And that's what drove me, because that's what drives me. When I find something I want to learn about, I go for it.
Yeah.
And I went for the healthy thing and learned a lot, man. So I became a company called Working Against Gravity. I became a Working Against Gravity diet coach, and paid whatever the money to go to school and everything. And I'd get up at about 3:30 in the morning every morning and do like 5 hours of class online to take these little tests to become certified. And here I got the book right here, man. Like, this is all the information. How do I show it to you? How thick it is, but this is like all the stuff. I printed all of it out, like page by page, and like I jumped right in it and learned how to do that stuff. And so now I can help other people that want to lose a little bit of weight or want to get, if you want abs or you want to build muscle, burn fat. Like, there's a way to do all those things, and it's not starving yourself. You know, it's not being hungry 24/7. It's being hungry is part of it, but not starving. So, you know, there's a way to do all those things. And I figured out how to do them and was able to get abs, you know, and was able to become in insane shape at one point, man. Probably I'm not as lean as I used to be, but I don't really care. I feel great. But at one point, man, I was like ripped, completely ripped. And I didn't think that I would ever be able to achieve like that amount of body fat. Like I was basically like probably 6% body fat. It was like nuts.
Which is crazy because like I know I'm a bigger dude. Like I'm 6'3" and I weigh about 285 right now. But you never think like when the body style that you had before was similar to like kind of where I've been at. And I would never think that I could make that happen. But
you can.
Six pack abs. I mean, it was, I think I saw a picture the other day. It was more than 6-pack abs.
Yeah, dude. Well, hey, man, like I was completely jacked. WAG, Working Against Gravity, they sent out like a filmmaker and he followed us around and he went to CrossFit with me and went to it was on the road. So he went to catering with me and I'm like weighing my food and showing people how I'd like did
it. And that's what I saw. That was the one that I saw. And it was just like, yeah, this is my whole life. I mean, because I've been on a diet my whole life. I mean, that's just the way it is. And it's like, that's what it is. You got to do those things. It's tough. It looks like it's a little over the top. But the fact of the matter is if you have, you know, the kind of body type that I have or what you similarly had, it's like you have to be really dialed or it's not going to happen. If you want those things, you got to be dialed.
Yeah, especially if you come from a place of bad habits and no one has ever taught you how to eat properly. And like my parents didn't teach me how to eat. They just, you know, everything was bacon and fried and out of a package, and that's how we did it. And you know, when you come from that part of that lifestyle into this lifestyle, you have to, you know, you got to pay attention to every gram of everything and pay it, you know, because it's not sustainable. Abs like that are not sustainable for guys like for me. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to stay on that diet 24/7, and it's almost impossible. I can do it for 12 weeks. I can do it for 18, 20, 20 weeks, but then I got to get a break, man. You know, right. It's just like, wow. But it was fun and I'm glad I did it. And I probably will do it again eventually. Probably I'm hoping this summer to cut down, but I'm in bulking now. So I'm working, I'm lifting, I'm eating more. So I'm a bigger guy at the moment. And when I trim down, hopefully I'll have more muscle. So we'll see how it works. I'm glad that I'm glad that I can do it to the point where like my foot's almost on a gas pedal. I can control my weight a bit and let off and control it and let off. And then I can suck on up and be super lean if I want to, which just takes a lot of effort, but I can do it.
You got to put in the work. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, man. But there's other people out there that just eat what the hell they want and they got abs, but you know what? Good for them.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
It is. It is.
I want to ask you. I have one question that I ask every time, but I got a couple of Three Doors Down ones because obviously you're the guitarist for Three Doors Down, and we didn't talk a whole lot about that. But I think that people know that. Like, I feel like the success story is the fact that where you came from, and I really enjoyed listening to that story. What do you think is the most underrated song that Three Doors Down has done?
Ooh, wow! There's a couple of them, man. I think so. I think Life of My Own would have been would have been a really huge song, and I think Behind Those Eyes, I think was was pretty underrated. I think that I think the timing and what was going on with it at the time was really tough. Hey, my son's up, so he's getting ready to talk to him. He's 4.
Oh, you're all right. It's all good.
Yeah. What's up, buddy?
I've got my 1-month-old sitting downstairs with my 8-year-old who's not feeling well today, and they've been trying to be quiet the whole time I'm up here. So,
yes, right there. Yeah. He's just got out of bed, so he'll sit beside me and play on his iPad.
Nice.
Thank you. So yeah, I think Behind Those Eyes is probably for me the most underrated song. Oh, excuse me. Life of My Own. Behind Those Eyes as well, but Life of My Own I think was I think that song should have been a single, I think. Yeah. And also Time of My Life, man. Like the lead song on that record I think should have been a single, and it wasn't because we went with When I'm Young or When You're Young, which I don't know. That's a strange time.
It's kind of weird. You have to pick what you don't usually have a whole lot of say in that, right? The producer's the one who's kind of going, hey, this is the one that's going to make the money. This is the banger right here.
You know what happens, man? And this is the honest truth. Like, there's so many people pulling strings for that.
Yeah.
So you got all the people at the label. And when I say all the people at the label, all the way from the president, all the way down to the A&R guy, like, and there's a lot of people in between. There's
Right.
20, 30 people in between. There's marketing people. There's lawyers. There's all these other people. They all have an opinion. All of them. And it's not always your opinion. And
Right.
you got to kind of wade those waters. And if you want a song, like, for instance, on that record, Time of My Life, like, I don't think Time of My Life was even an option to be a single. And that's the only song we play off that record. If we even play one, we don't play any of the other ones. We don't play When You're Young, which is a single. We don't play any of that. What was the other one? Every Time You Go.
Mm-hmm.
We don't play those songs live because they didn't do crap. That record for us was like a flop, and it was a good record, man. And there was a lot of great songs on that no one ever really heard. But I think what happened was all those people started pulling. They heard a song that was similar to a song that did well, and then that's enough. That's enough for them. They don't they don't care what the fan base is going to think when they hear it. They just go, this is the one, this is the one, this is the one. And it just gets pushed until eventually everyone just goes, okay. And so that's what happens. But, throughout the years and the success of Three Doors, like, that was never an issue. Like, every song picked went boom. And just one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, like 13 number ones or something crazy like that. And, pop hits and rock hits and alternative hits. And just like, it was like, they just kept coming. And so
what's your
ahead.
favorite song to play?
I think The Better Life is fun, man, because it's just like it's a rock track, man, and you can just really open up and I don't know, from a guitar player standpoint, and one like I'm not like a technical. Hey, buddy, Brandon, chill for a minute. I'm not like a technical guitar player. I'm more of like a physical bang on the guitar type guy. So I want that song that allows me to open up and just be like, and to feel it here, to feel it up top, and not just here. And then, which I don't know if you understand that, but like,
no, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, it reminds me of like before the football game, right? Like, you're getting jacked up and you want to be able to, perform at your best. And so when you're doing that, you're in the moment. You're really after it.
Yeah. It's like, and you know what? And furthermore, like, this is another in the moment thing. Like, remember we were playing baseball or softball as a kid, and you hit that home run, but you don't even feel the ball. That's in the moment right there, because you're conscious of the end of a bat that's in your hands and bang, and that's what it's like. It's when you can't feel the ball.
Yeah, I had that moment. I only hit one home run in high school, and I'll tell you what, I hit that ball. And I was at second base, and I ran into the guy who was on second base, and he says, "Slow down, you hit it out." And that's just
that's fun, man.
Feeling. Yeah.
What a good feeling, man. Hey, you know what? I hit a bunch of home runs, but I knew, like, when I knew by the sound that it was out.
Yeah.
Boom, I was just, but.
Yeah, that's what happens after you hit a few of them. I just had the one. I hit a lot of doubles, and I was too big to get a triple, so it was.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think for me, like, I didn't play high school baseball, like on the high school baseball team, because my football coaches hated it. So I always played like in the other.
The summer league. Like Babe Ruth here is what they called it, but
it wasn't Babe Ruth. It was like it was different because everything was sponsored. So it was like, I played on a sponsored team. Yeah. A lot of kids would, and they recruited. So I mean, we were good, but it wasn't like, it's like travel teams, travel baseball. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I was kind of hiding from my football coaches, but
yeah. Hey, I'm going to ask you this last question before we get there. What do you got going on? Is there anywhere that you do want people to follow you? Is there anything we can give a shout out to? What are you looking for?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's funny. Just recently, I started a gun business. I don't know how people feel about guns. I don't really care. I love them, and I think in America, it's important that we exercise our rights as far as that goes. So I build custom rifles, and I have a company. It's called
I was
MTR,
gonna
Middle
say, that's
Tennessee
your
Rifle.
company, right? Yep.
Yeah, and I started it just to see how it would do, just to see if people responded to it. And I sold every gun I built, and in 3 months, I sold probably close to 18 or 19 guns, and without a website, without any sort of advertising or any sort of plugging like I'm doing right now, like
Yeah.
shameless plugging, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Um,
I appreciate you
but
being here.
hold on, buddy. Yeah, hold on a second. Hold on 1 second.
Yep.
Brandon. It's okay. It's all right. All right. It's okay, buddy. It's all right. I'm not gonna break it. He thinks I'm gonna break my daughter's computer because my computer's sitting on top of hers. So
yeah.
yeah,
It happens.
it's okay. I straightened it out. But
Yep.
it's MTR, Middle Tennessee Rifle, and it's MTRgunworks.com. If people want to go check it out. Right now, I'm out of stock on all guns and lowers, but in the next couple of weeks, I'll be back because the gun business booms. So I'm not able to keep guns, rifles, and I'm not able to keep lowers in stock. People buy them as fast as I get them. So
Yeah. And that's on your Instagram account too, right? Your website is on your Instagram.
yeah, it's on my Instagram account. They can go there and just click on it and check it out. I sell hats and stuff like that. And I have a lot of parts in stock. I just don't have any like actual lowers or rifles in stock, but
Yeah.
won't be long. So,
That's
but I
awesome.
build really nice ones, and I build them one at a time. I don't like have a stock gun that I sell. I build each one for each person as they order, and I do it myself. I do the test fire. If they're in town where I live, they can come do the test fire with me. Brantley, stop. Okay. And that's how it goes. It's pretty cool, and I love it. It's good work, and they can't take it away from me.
Yeah. That's
They can't tell me that I can't do it because I might. I don't know. They can't tell me that I can't do it. So
Yeah. Yep. Well, hey, it's been great having you on, and I appreciate you taking the time. I mean, a whole hour out of your day is very, I'm very grateful for it. The show is called Shaping Success, and we talk about, what success is. And basically, I want to know how you would define it, because I think it's different for every single person. So how would you define success?
okay, I mean, I actually thought about this a little bit because you mentioned that to me before when we were like just through the correspondence. To me, I think success for me is just the ability to do what you want, when you want, as you want, and no matter how much money you make, if money is a part of that, money's not part of that for me. I think being successful is just living your life the way that you want to live it, and being able to do that. And that's what I think success is for me. And not only that, but being able to earn it to the point that it's like that. Does that make sense? So.
Yeah. I think that you've made a pretty good example of that throughout this interview, where it's, everything that you do, you put your best foot forward, and you do everything you can to just, be successful in what you do. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I heard a guy say one time that everything in business is positioning, but I don't think everything in business is positioning. I think everything in life that you want to do is positioning. So being ready for the opportunity when the opportunity comes is what you got to do. So you got to be ready for many different things, because the opportunity that you think's coming may not be the one that's coming. Right? Oh, dude, you got to chill for a minute. Just 1 second.
Well, hey, thanks a lot, Chris. I really appreciate, I reached out on Instagram, and you were very responsive, and I'm super appreciative to get to talk to you, get to know you, get to kind of tell a story that not very many people have heard. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a good day, and thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It was really cool.
Yep. Thank you. All right. We'll talk
Yes,
to you
sir.
later. All right,
Bye,
everyone.
buddy.
We'll see ya. All right, everyone. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.